Welcome everyone to another episode of Get Tech Smart. I am your host, Flo Nicholas. So before we jump in and kick off with our guest, if you didn't know, some exciting news. I now have a partnership with the Granite State News Collaborative, and they'll be helping me push out these episodes to the various media and news outlets to help me amplify the message, which is tech is awesome. And today I have an awesome guest. I'm really excited for this because, you know, the gaming industry is huge right now. Predictions that I just read this morning, 2022, $200 billion. That's how much revenue is predicted to come in. I mean, I'm like, why did I go to law school? This is like, what? So I'm gonna just go ahead and introduce our guest today, Neal Laurenza. Thank you for coming here today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks, Flo.
You are the CEO of Skymap.
That's right.
Which is a gaming company, but you just don't just only create games, but you also help other gamers or game development companies. But before we get into the juicy details,
sure,
we want to know who you are and how you kind of took this path into creating games.
Yeah. So, like Flo said, I'm Neal Laurenza. It's great to be chatting with you. So I got into video games weirdly from a super young age. My mother is an entrepreneur and a gamer, and so I have memories of being a really small child and kind of stumbling into the living room at 2 o'clock in the morning,
right.
And she's in front of the Sega playing. So I've wanted to make video games in some form or another for a really long time. I got into video game modding during high school, which is modifying existing video games to make them do what I want to do. So changing a wall to be see-through, for example, if I wanted to cheat in an online multiplayer game, but don't tell anyone that. And then for college, I went to Southern New Hampshire University, where I did video game development there, and graduated, went to work for a software company doing marketing for probably about a year, and then sort of took what I made there and started Skymap Games, my video game company.
Wow, that's incredible. And when you were talking about your mother playing the Sega game system, you just really made me feel old because as a child, that was my favorite gaming system. I was obsessed with Sega, so I felt a little old right now. But that's
Sega.
great. I mean, so you went to Southern, you did the game development program, and then you decided, you know, hey, I could do this.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go ahead and create my own company. So let's kind of walk through that process and like, what are some of the games that you've created?
Yeah, sure. So during the time that I was in school, the kinds of games we were making were really for educational purposes. Like, they were just for us to figure out how do you actually make games successfully, because the process of doing it is really hard.
Right.
Games are art, programming, music, business, project management, engineering. There's a million components to make a video game. So we kind of used that as the opportunity to try and fail. And so we would even, during the summertime, continue renting dorm rooms just to keep making games, even when the professors weren't around, just because we were really motivated to figure out how to do it correctly. When I graduated, we started making a game called Bacon Man, which was about a guy made out of bacon who beats up vegetables. and that was tons of fun to work on, but also we realized very quickly how expensive it is making video games. Some projects can be millions of dollars. Even big AAA games can be hundreds of millions of dollars to develop, meaning like the biggest titles in the industry. So what we decided was, let's figure out how to make money making video games. And one way of doing that was contract development. So we would go online, search on forums for all sorts of different game development groups and say, hey, we're able to work. You know, at first it was like $15 an hour, and then it was like, okay, well, now we got a couple of projects going. And we just kept going up and up. And that's still part of our business, but in that side of the business, we've worked on games like Mario Kart Home Circuit, Don't Starve, games like Myst, Sam & Max, a whole bunch of different video game properties that are, for one reason or another, fairly famous, which I feel really excited to share that.
Right, I mean, Mario Kart is huge. I know this. I've bought it. I bought 2 copies of Mario Kart for my daughter. So that is definitely a huge milestone for your company.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting to get to work on teams that are integrated within groups in Japan too. Like, because then you get to learn how do other cultures also make video games, and it's different than in the States, which is kind of cool. So.
Yeah. So I mean, you just mentioned right now how the cost just to develop a video game is like not it's not a couple of pennies. We're talking like millions of dollars here.
Yeah, it's not trivial. It really depends on the scope of the game that you're building. Like, there are definitely developers who've made games on shoestring budgets, but for companies like Skymap, usually those projects are sort of minimum $1 million, and they can range up to $5 million for a project.
Yeah. And then what's driving up the cost? Is it because it sounds like, based on what you just mentioned, it's not just one person. It sounds like it's a team of people. Like, there's definitely sounds like collaboration that's going on. So, like, what is a team? So right now, if I wanted to build a video game, who would be on my team? Who was the A team here? So
for super small developers, known as like kind of what's known as indie devs, independent devs, they could be as small as one person.
Okay.
In that case, they're multifaceted, and maybe they're doing art and programming and audio and a bunch of other things. But for sort of a typical game development team, you have some number of folks that are doing art, that can be 3D or 2D. You have folks that are programming, folks that are doing project management, audio. The thing about games that a lot of people don't understand is, like, if you go and make an album, you're just making the songs. If you go and make a movie, you're recording, and you have actors, and there's a lot involved in that. But when you're making games, like, it's the culmination of all of those things in one product. And it also has to sort of be fun, depending on what your goal of the project is. So it's really challenging, and very multifaceted. And like you said, you can have a team of a ton of different disciplines to make that work.
Yeah, and what's like the average? So a game like Mario Kart, I guess that would be the best way. Like, how long? See, by the time I buy the game, I don't know the behind the scenes. I don't know it took hours and hours, and how many people on the team. I don't know any of that.
Sure.
So like a game like Mario Kart, how long does that take from start to finish?
Yeah, it's hard to know exactly, because that project we came in, it was like a little later in development. But I can give you an example of some other games that I know of. There was a game that we're working on, like Bacon Man, for example. Doing that part-time with 4 people took us almost 5 years.
What?
Yeah. Of course, we were learning how to build it while we were doing that. Now, a game that might take 10 to 20 people for our team would probably take 18 to 24 months.
Wow.
But it's very unusual for a group of our size, our company's about 50 people, to have games that we're working on that are less than 18 months of development time.
Yeah, so I mean that's a long time. So you're literally going through various project milestones before you can get to the part where I go buy the game for my kids.
Yeah, that's right. And usually there's also distribution deals with publishers or other groups that are involved in financing, getting the game to the market, physical distribution, digital distribution, marketing, PR. So there's a whole nother side of the industry that's outside of development as well, but we're mostly just focused on development.
Right, and the other part that people don't realize is the IP. Right? You got to protect that, right? Especially if your company is the one that's creating the game, you want to make sure you copyright your games,
100%.
Protect your intellectual property.
Yeah, we work with IP lawyers for that exact reason, and they help us to try to protect what we're building and hope that no one steals it. But in the video game industry, it's actually very common for folks to sort of clone each other's projects and figure out ways to put a spin on it.
Of course, that's the trick. And I'm sure because you're working with various sometimes teams that are outside the country or teams that you contract, you're probably also dealing with having people sign NDAs, non-disclosure agreements to say, don't talk about our stuff with other people.
Yeah, all the time. There's a million things that I would actually love to talk about, like partners that we're working with or new projects, but for the exact reason you just described, usually the video game is very tight because they don't want any information leaking. Recently, there was actually a huge leak with a company called Rockstar Games. Their game Grand Theft Auto.
The breach. Yeah,
they had a data breach, and there was a huge leak, and now people are not happy about that. So everyone's seen it before it's ready for announcement.
And that's one of the things that I actually did want to mention. So I'm happy you brought it up. Is that concern of the cybersecurity attacks while you're in the middle of trying to create your game, And unfortunately, in this situation, I think it was an 18-year-old
Yeah.
who was able.
That's usually what it is. It's like some smart kid, you know.
So, and it's funny because this weekend I was at Wicked STEM New England, and I brought it up, and I said, STEM is important at early childhood curriculum, and I brought up this kid who hacked into Rockstar Games, but I said, how do we use that energy, that positive energy for good, right? Like, instead of hacking into the game, maybe he comes and works for you and it helps you.
Yeah, it's funny. I think there are a lot of conferences, and I don't know a terrible amount about cybersecurity, but I know there's like a lot of conferences that folks do where they try to recruit different folks who are doing different forms of hacking to try to get them to do sort of like white hat work, more positive,
ethical
hacking.
Yeah.
I don't know how effective it is if folks are making tons of money stealing credit cards or something, but who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fascinating to see how that unfolds.
No, it definitely is fascinating. All right, so let's talk about just how the video game landscape is changing a little bit, right? Because now we have like the metaverse coming, right? And we're starting to see people wanting to use the VR glasses, and just this whole kind of new virtual reality world for games. Is that anything that you're currently investigating, researching?
Yeah, we actually have multiple original titles in development for VR, and I'm a believer that there are lots of different platforms that can create completely unique experiences for players.
Right.
But the way that I tend to focus on deciding what platform are we building a game is, does that platform, such as virtual reality, actually provide some experience that people haven't seen before, or that is unique in the industry. I think there's right now a lot of focus around buzzwords like metaverse, VR, XR, even in some cases blockchain and NFT stuff is sneaking into video games. But I don't think everybody necessarily understands like what that means and what the implications are. So what my group tries to focus on is not looking at a particular technology to solve a problem that doesn't like if there's no problem that we're trying to solve for, then like why just implement a technology into the game arbitrarily? Instead, we're looking at what's an experience or what's a thing that cannot be done. Like, is there a technology that can suit that, or has it been invented yet? So VR provides some really interesting opportunities in like making folks feel like they are there and using their body in ways that video games haven't traditionally been able to do.
No, I mean, I think you bring up a good point, right? Because right now, metaverse, Web3, and you mentioned blockchain as well, and NFTs, that's the new shiny object right now, right?
That's right.
And everybody is just like, ooh, how can I use this? There's no, really probably no problem they're trying to solve, but it's I want to be one of the first people to launch something with this new cool shiny tool.
Yeah, and it's something I have some grievance with. Like, I think there are a lot of companies that are super invested right now into NFTs and blockchain and these other types of tech. I think those technologies, some of them have problems like environmental aspects and things like that, but I think those are solvable.
Right.
However, we get approached by companies all the time asking us to do like NFT or blockchain projects in the video game space. And the question I always ask those folks is, what does this do to make a better player experience?
Right.
And like 99.9% of the time, they just can't answer that. They always come back to answers around ownership of objects in the game and that sort of thing. But you never really own something just because it's on the blockchain. It doesn't mean you actually own it. Like if it's not a physical, tangible thing, ownership is a very hard thing to define, and I think it's a little bit deceiving that there are so many people coming into that space. I'm looking forward to a day when we have a unique, legitimate use of blockchain technology in the video game space, because I just haven't seen anything yet that like a standard relational database couldn't solve in video game development.
And and I'm looking for someone who can come on the show and specifically talk about, what is blockchain? What is Web3? So if you're listening or if you have a connection, I want somebody here because, a lot of people don't really fully understand, what blockchain is and Web3 and metaverse. I feel like there's a lot of confusion, and I would love to get someone on here to talk about that. So if you're watching, call me. But no, everything you're saying is spot on. I will say I have tried just the experience of having the VR glasses, and it's like you're on a roller coaster,
Right.
and you literally feel it, right? So for some people, they might say, well, that's the experience, right? People want to, not just the thumbs, just playing. They want to actually have something on, maybe be Mario Kart, and you're in the car, and you're that body, the full body experience.
Yeah, I think it's all about the suspension of disbelief. Like video games are all about like creating some sort of core fantasy for a player.
Yes.
And VR is a step toward continuing to trick the brain into forgetting that there's like things in the outside world. It's another way of getting you sort of sucked into the experience. I think VR is the next step in eventually getting toward like other ways of giving people, sensation within games. Right now, we're sort of using VR to trick your inner ear into thinking that like you're in a physical space.
Right.
We're covering the player's vision, doing audio that is sort of surround, and you can actually hear things that are coming from different directions.
Right.
So like we're getting close, but I still feel like VR is making huge strides, but it actually still feels very far away from where the VR industry wants to take it, which is like total suspension of disbelief in this platform.
Yeah, and I believe it. I think there was a movie called Player One.
Ready Player One, yeah.
Yeah, so that was, if anything, I think that's a good indication of where we're heading, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's a scary one too, because it's funny, like that book and movie is sort of about like the world is falling apart and everybody's escaping into video games, and it does sort of feel true sometimes. Like
we're there already.
Yeah. So I mean, while I feel optimistic about the future, I also recognize that there are a lot of folks that they do escape into video games. Though I don't think that video games are a net negative in any way. I think they can be a very positive experience on people's lives. So.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. My husband has those, and sometimes he runs away in the basement, or hold on, man cave to escape us. But I have a trick. I just open the door and I let the kids downstairs right there with him.
Nice.
But speaking of kids, so my daughters they love video games, right? They're like video game junkies. They got the Xbox, which I probably need to upgrade for them this year. So I'm timing the Black Friday deal. But they now do this thing that I'm like, okay, what's going on here? They now watch someone playing video games and narrating the whole thing. So they stop playing video games. Now they watch someone playing video games.
Yeah, I sort of equate it to folks sitting next to each other, and one person is playing a single player game, and the other person is like watching, and they're both kind of commentating back and forth. It's become almost like a television show where people are logging in to watch these live experiences of other folks commentating their video games, and they feel like they're in some way or another sort of building some sort of like relationship to the streamer because the streamer does things that they find interesting or tells jokes or whatever it is that they like. So it's kind of the same as turning on a TV show and watching it, but also different from the perspective that it's live streamed and everything that's happening is going on at that moment. Games are interesting because like once you're done watching the show, then you can go play the show.
Right.
So like, oh neat, I'm watching this person stream, I pick a game, Apex Legends or something, and then I'm gonna go and take what I've learned from watching that player and go enjoy that experience on my own, and that's a unique aspect of the streaming world.
Well, I mean, but I think it's also kind of fantastic, right? Because I think one of the things that happens is if they're playing, right, they have large followers. Right? I'm talking about people who are like getting billions of views, and some of these gamers, like Markiplier's one I told you about earlier, he's making like $35 million a year. But I think it's a great way for, let's say, someone who just developed this small game, and if you can get his ear, one of these YouTubers' ear, to play your game, you're now like, boom.
100%. There's a whole aspect of video game marketing now that revolves around trying to get YouTubers and streamers to play your video game on live. It's fascinating. It's funny, when I got into making games, it was sort of just really spinning up, and now seeing to what degree people are watching these streamers, these entertainers, like play these games is staggering. And you're absolutely right. Like, people make a living now, and in some cases have entire companies just around the production of these videos. So.
Yeah, and one guy called Mr. Beast, he's getting like, I think I saw like a post where he had like 1 billion views on a video in 1 month. And
That's
I'm like,
staggering. Yeah.
like what? Yeah, it's like a whole industry. And at the beginning of the show, when I did the introduction, so back in 2018, I think like the video game industry, it was around like $100-something billion.
Right.
We're now like it just smoked that.
It's going over
doubled.
Over 200 billion. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're saying around 205, 206 billion this year in revenue. Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. I think that it's not stopping. From what I can tell, it's also fairly recession-proof, which is interesting. It's sort of like the more people are stuck at home, like the more people join playing video games, like start to learn how to play video games, and then those folks don't ever really leave. Like you don't hear very often about folks that start playing video games and then stop playing altogether, unless it's some like major life event or something. So the pandemic was sort of an accelerant, because there are a lot of folks that like 2020 rolls around and they're stuck at home, and they start figuring out, what am I going to do with my time? And they got into playing video games, and some of them got into making video games too, which is pretty cool. So.
And it's an addiction. Listen. I remember trying to play. Who's that little Sega game? They made a movie on him, Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sonic the Hedgehog. Yeah.
I was obsessed with that game and beating that evil Dr.
Robotnik.
Yeah, I was so obsessed with beating him, because like you literally are like, I am not leaving my house until I beat this guy in this game, and there's an addiction to it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very mentally stimulating. I think in a lot of positive ways. There are definitely folks that do get legitimately addicted to video games in a negative way, especially games like massively multiplayer games. But I think those are more rare instances, and in those situations, probably folks have other things going on that need to be addressed. But yeah, it's a pretty wild industry, and it keeps growing and growing year over year, and it shows no signs of stopping, especially because other forms of media now are getting consumed by video games too. Kids are growing up without cable, and they watch their YouTubers. People are listening to video game music on Spotify and Apple Music. And they're playing games everywhere. They're playing them on their cell phone, VR headsets, consoles, smart TVs. So it's just going to keep going.
And they've made it easy, right? They've made the technology easy that you don't have to just be plugged into the TV now. You can take that console and you can be anywhere you want playing those video games. So you have that accessibility.
Yeah.
Play anywhere, anytime, 24/7.
Yeah, and that's kind of where things are moving to, is like video game streaming. So the idea that there's some data center somewhere, and like it with Netflix, you load up on your phone or your TV or whatever, I want to play this game, and it streams the video of the game. The game, it's actually being processed on a server somewhere, but the video feed is coming to the player, and when the player makes an input on the controller, it goes back to the data center, and it's just running that cycle.
And that's how this industry is continuing to make money, because it's easily accessible, and like you said, it's recession-proof. And for parents, it's like when our kids are like, this is what I want for Christmas, half the time, that's what we're getting, unfortunately. So lucky kids. But let's talk about this whole other world, right? So we have the YouTubers who are making some serious money, but now there's like competitions, like global competitions that are going on, where the prize is millions of dollars as well. So
Esports.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's funny. I don't remember the exact statistics, so apologies. But there was an esports tournament that happened a year or so ago, and I think they said it had more viewers than like the Super Bowl.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's reaching a point now where, and to describe esports for folks that maybe aren't aware of this, there are lots of video games that are super competitive, and online multiplayer. So in some cases, like it's 8-on-8 people, fighting each other or playing against each other or whatever. And esports is running leagues and professional teams with coaches and managers and all sorts of things like you'd see in the regular sports, sponsorships, and they're playing for large cash prize pools. In some cases, those pools are hosted by the leagues themselves or even by the video game companies that are making the games.
Yeah, actually, we had our Weld Academy here, which is in Nashua, and they have an esports team. So we had one of the coaches who, you know, is overseeing that program over there, and he was talking about some of the money that's being made from these competitions for top prizes, and it's absolutely like I half the time I'm like, why did I go to law school? Like I should have been in tech a long time ago.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a weird thing. Like, I don't think anybody truly would have known how big things were going to get. You can be in the video game industry and not be involved in making video games at all. You could be a streamer, you could be a professional esports person, you could be a coach of an esports team, as weird as that sounds. IP law. Game companies are massive. Some of the largest ones are thousands and thousands of employees. And it's a very hot space, and again shows sort of no signs of stopping right now. And tendrils are going into all sorts of other industries as well.
No, it is. It's definitely growing. How do you see the shape of the gaming industry here in New Hampshire?
It's pretty small right now. Skymap, for as far as I know, my company is the largest employer. So we're about 50 employees, and we anticipate we'll probably double in size over the course of 18 to 24 months.
Oh my goodness.
Which is exciting and terrifying, but also very exciting.
Well, who are you hiring? So when you're saying you're going to expand in 18 to 24 months, who are you hiring? Tell us the juicy details.
Yeah, sure. So my company really focuses on 4 areas, which is engineering, design, quality assurance, and production management. We also have back-end team like ops and legal and those sorts of things. We anticipate that the majority of our hiring is going to be in engineering. We'll also be adding some additional design resources, some QA resources, some production like project managers, and probably only maybe 1 to 3 back office folks just to continue helping support the growth. So that's really where our core focus is. Other game companies might have more substantial other departments. So because we specialize in those 4 areas, we're just focused on that. But if you're a different company, you might have a full art department. You could have an audio department, and among others. So.
Yeah. So what's the project manager doing? And the reason why I ask is I was actually talking to a young lady yesterday who's like, hey, I want to be a project manager for a tech company.
Sure.
So I'm curious, in a project manager role for a gaming company, what are they overseeing? What are they doing day to day?
It's funny, in the video game industry, there's a catch-all term called producers. And for some companies, it's project managers. For some, it's just this person just solves what needs to be solved on a project and is kind of going where needed. In Skymap, typically they're project managers, typical software project management, agile methodology, running sprints in some cases for software developers, task tracking, goal tracking, reporting information to clients or stakeholders on the progress of a title. And helping to remove obstacles from the development team, like, hey, I'm running into this problem. Well, let's figure out what resources are needed in order to overcome that issue.
Critical thinking, problem-solving skills, communication skills.
Organized.
Now, yeah. So now, are you doing project manager, or is this a product manager?
Project management, typically. Okay. There are companies that have product managers. But in games, usually those are folks that are some sort of form of project director or creative director, sometimes hybrid of those roles. It just depends on the structure of the company. For our team, we have creative directors and lead designers, and they typically take on that type of role.
It's a whole production. I'm just listening to you talk to who's on your team. It's like a whole production team. Yeah,
and it's a lot of really smart people who are just super motivated to be working on these games because they have some sort of connection to the video game industry, and they want to be part of that excitement.
Yeah, no, it's definitely exciting. And so for people who are looking to get into gaming, who are as excited as, my daughters, who love video games, where do you start?
Yeah, it's interesting. You can get started making video games without, there's very low barrier to entry. You could go on YouTube and search, how to make video games, Unreal Engine or Unity, one of these free software programs that are out there to make games. And you can start making them right now. There's not really anything stopping anyone other than just access to the internet and a decent computer. You don't have to have anything too high end, but something strong enough to run the software. Video game industry tends to prioritize portfolio first. So folks that have strong portfolios, the ability to show their work is most important. I would say sort of second to that is experience, though some companies will say experience is actually even more important than portfolio, depending on their priorities. And then third is education. There are lots of folks working in the game industry that they don't have degrees, which is fine, as long as they are super awesome at the work. The difficulty becomes when there's so many people competing for video game jobs. Having the degree does help you stand out amongst these larger pools of applicants.
Yeah, I want to touch upon that real quick before we wrap up, because I am seeing kind of like an increase where people are. Some companies might not necessarily be, focused on the 4-year college degree. You're starting to see more people kind of do like apprenticeship style programs, learn and earn motto. Is that something at all that your company does?
We do internships, and everything we do is paid internships. We have. I feel fortunate that being in New Hampshire actually does give us some advantages where. I feel like if we were in Los Angeles or something, one of the video game industry hubs, the cost to run the business would be so much higher.
Right.
And because we're in New Hampshire, which is not like a video game hub, but is close to other video game hubs, which is helpful, we're able to I think pay fair wages and have folks that even are in training who are coming in, working while they're in school in some cases, or starting off as part-timers, and then we move them up pretty quickly to full-time employees once they just kind of prove out, I can do good work. So we do that fairly regularly.
And are there any esports competitions right here in New Hampshire? Would you ever sponsor your own?
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. We don't make esports games yet.
Okay.
It'd be interesting to make one. But there are colleges in New Hampshire, I know Southern New Hampshire University has an esports team. So I know there's college level esports, but I don't think New Hampshire's quite at the national or international level yet. I could be wrong, so hopefully I'm wrong.
We need to level up. We need to get to that level because the money that's coming in is it's not pennies.
Yeah, for sure. I think there was when I first got started, New Hampshire Public Radio did an article that was how New Hampshire is losing its tiny burgeoning video game industry to other hubs because we had an exodus of young folks who were leaving the state. I think we're making improvements. Some of my co-founders and I were someone just needs to do this and start a video game industry in New Hampshire, and we just figured we're here and we need to stick to it and see if we can do it. And we think that not only is it possible, but New Hampshire could become a serious powerhouse for video game development. It just needs time and investment and other forms of resources to help power that up if we want to do it in a reasonable time frame.
And exposure, and that's why he's here, right?
Absolutely.
We're gonna get global exposure so the whole world can know that we're not just about the Hampton Beach, we're not about the White Mountains, that we have a growing tech scene that's happening right here in New Hampshire. We have a growing tech scene.
So for folks that are interested in getting into the video game industry, those are great reasons to be in this area.
Yes.
Having the White Mountains and all these beautiful, New Hampshire's a beautiful place. So coming here and having good work-life balance and hiking and all the things that we enjoy are a great part of being here.
And this is why it's important, and I'm so happy that you were able to come here because, this is one area I've been literally I need someone from the gaming industry. Anybody help me? And I'm so happy that Jason introduced us because, this is great. There's so much going on in New Hampshire that, when people talk to me, they're like, I had no idea that this was going on. So I'm thankful that you were able to come on the show and educate us about everything that's going on in the gaming industry. If anything, any updates happen, you're welcome to come back.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, would love for
And
you
you had
to
such
come
great
back.
questions. Thanks for having me on. I
Oh,
appreciate
no
it.
problem. I hope you can tell that I really love talking tech.
Yeah,
that's my
absolutely.
thing. That's my niche, as I call it. So thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
And yeah, let's get together. Maybe we can start a esports competition right here in New Hampshire.
Sky's the limit.
Actually, you know what? I say the sky is not the limit because there's also space. We can go all the way up there. There's
Dang, I should have thought of that.
There's planets that we haven't discovered, so I'm going all the way up to space. So, so thank you again so much for coming here, Neal. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And everyone else, thank you for watching another fantastic episode of Get Tech Smart. Stay tuned for more.